Hi guys. We're just getting, oh, hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect.
Awesome. Hold on, let me fix my screen real fast.
I'm going to put y'all in my ears.
Awesome. You guys
I'm
can
going to
see.
be real close if you're that far away. Maybe I should move back.
Oh, I can move forward.
So much on my face.
There. Is that better?
Perfect. Yeah, you look great. Hi.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Kristen Hood. How are you?
I'm April. I'm good. Thank you.
It's so nice to meet you.
You
Are
too.
we gonna, is Tot, sorry. Oh, it says Tot Squad is unable to join. Are they gonna join?
I thought so, but I am prepared with the questions that we kind of talked about before, if you are, and
Okay,
any of
yeah.
the new ones that people sent in. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Perfect.
I'm not sure. Sometimes
Okay.
the time stuff gets a little funny, I think,
Okay.
when we're talking about all the time zones. I'm not sure. I have to pay attention real close.
I know.
So I'm not sure.
Okay, awesome. Well, we can get started. I can, let me just add them to join one more time just to confirm.
Oh, she said they're hanging out watching, but they're letting us talk. I think I just saw Alana.
Perfect. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure we had everyone. Awesome. Okay, well, let's get started. I'm going to introduce myself and then I'll have you jump in, and I have a lot of questions to ask you and I'm so excited to get started. So my name is Kristen Hood and I am Goodbuy Gear's resident gear expert. I'm a mother of two and I have been with Goodbuy Gear for quite a long time now, and I'm so excited to have this conversation. I know the topic of breastfeeding and going back to work is a very stressful one for many moms, and I remember it being very stressful for myself. So I'm so excited to chat with you about all of this and get everybody all of this great advice. And so can you introduce yourself and just tell us who you are and all of your different background?
Sure. My name is April Kerwood. I am a postpartum doula and certified lactation counselor. I live in Columbus, Ohio. I have 4 children that range from 16 to 8. And I have my own business called In This Together, because before I knew that this could be a job, I would say to other moms when they said thank you for listening or, you know, crying or whatever we were doing together, I would say, okay, it's great. Like, we're in this together. So that's my business. I work with prenatal moms planning their pregnancy and postpartum time. And then I have a project with my business now where I partner with pelvic floor therapists. So they get me for all the prenatal stuff and birth planning. And then we partner with pelvic floor therapy to prepare them for birth. And then we cover them during the postpartum period, because we all know how not good the coverage is for moms in the United States currently. So that's called the Motherhood Project. And I do that with 3 local pelvic floor therapists. And I love it. And I feel like the more I say postpartum doula, I think people are starting to understand what it is, but also the more I do this work, the more I realize you can pee on a stick and call me, and it's probably going to do you real good, because we need to start the work as early as possible, because we're just flooded with lots of information we don't need.
That is so true. I wish I had a birth doula, and I learned about postpartum doula with when I had my first, but I was too late. So with my second, I got a postpartum doula. It was the best I ever did.
Yes. It's just one of those things where, you know, if you don't know what it is, you could kind of go through and just be like, oh, this is what's happening. But once you do know what it is, moms like you who have kids that are a little bit older are like, I wish I would have known. I hear that every time I talk to moms of older kids. I wish there would have been a you. And I'm like, yeah, me too. So that's why we have to kind of just keep saying it.
Yeah, I tell every single one of my friends that is having kids, the first thing I tell them is, you need a birth doula and you need a postpartum doula. Get that signed up now. That should be your first thing.
Perfect.
That's awesome. Okay, well, that's so great to know. So let's talk about, so I know we want to chat about moms going back to work and breastfeeding and bottle feeding and pumping and what all of that looks like. So can you tell me a little bit, just to get everybody started, on like, what are the feeding options for moms? And like when you first get home from the hospital, and then like as you're, you know, kind of starting that journey, can you just talk a little bit about what that can look like for everyone and the differences?
Sure. I mean, I think when we talk about feeding choices for moms, we have lots of information now about breastfeeding. So breastfeeding rates are going up, and we see that through like my personal work and when I look around at who's doing what, and that's amazing. The other thing we have to factor in is that there's plenty of women who will say this is not for me, and that is okay too, right? So we want to have all the options in front of us so that we can respect every woman's choice to do what is right for her. So I have served clients as a CLC and doula who just said, no, I don't think I want to do this. This isn't going to be my choice. And I'm like, great, because I would rather see someone assertive and confident in what is for them moving into the postpartum period with their baby than people that are women or parents that are kind of inundated with guilt or like uncertainty or all of these things. So from the get-go, I think the most important thing is to know what is for you. And then if you don't and you want to step into it and see all your choices, then we'll start there. So breastfeeding education can start in pregnancy. And the most important thing I would tell people, hoping to breastfeed or working towards breastfeeding is that it changes really quickly, and no one is telling you that, and it's okay. So it's always meant to change like the minute you leave the hospital. So what happens is my clients get to the hospital, they give birth, they start breastfeeding their babies with the breasts they had through their pregnancy, and they're like, this is great. And I'm like, yeah, you've had those for a while, you're used to them, like this baby's little, you just gave birth, you're high on like all of the baby things. And then they go home and they get this transitional milk, and all of a sudden the things that I hear are so negative, like we were doing fine and now we're failing, or it was going so well and now it's not, and it's because we're not educating moms that it was always going to change right then, because that's what it does. So instead of taking it like women, like we do, like, look, I failed, instead of taking it's coming, I should probably gather some.
Yep. That makes. Yep. Oh, looks. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I finished my thought. I
Okay.
was waiting on
Sorry.
you. Yeah. No,
Okay.
okay.
Sorry. Okay. We're cutting out just a little bit. Yes, and that is so unbelievably helpful because it does change. And I know with my first, we struggled so hard with breastfeeding. I did all the things. It was such a struggle, and I didn't have anyone there to explain it to me or help me through it. It was like I cried every day for probably 8 months about it. And so I feel like there's just not that education, and it's so helpful that women can get that ahead of time. And then the other thing I would love you to touch on is like supplemental feeding or combo feeding. So for moms who maybe want to keep breastfeeding, but maybe they don't have a great supply, or maybe it's like timing wise and it just works better for them to, nurse not all day, every day, or whatever that looks like. Can you talk a little bit about what it looks like to supplement with the formula?
Yeah. So I think the first thing I would say, as far as if you have breastfeeding goals, if you want to go towards combo feeding, which is at the breast or pumped milk in a bottle or formula, any of those things, combo feeding is great for lots of reasons. What I want to encourage moms and parents to do is fully explore the breastfeeding first, because we can't combo. We won't be comboing anything if all of a sudden we've kind of thrown the breastfeeding journey off, if that makes sense. Yeah. So when we introduce some things too soon, that can affect, and then we do this like self-fulfilling prophecy, I don't have enough supply. Well, it was also because we supplemented a little early and our body didn't get the message to make the amount of milk that our baby needs. So of course, again, I want to see like hands-on help. I want to see a person looking at this mom and baby. But really anything moving forward looks like establishing a good breastfeeding relationship and then offering pumped milk or combo feeding with formula. All of those things can be good, but we need a good foundation in how breastfeeding works. Okay. Because we sometimes say to ourselves, hey, let's do some combo feeding. And then all of a sudden there is no combo because our bodies are trying to figure out how much breast milk to make. Right. So what I don't want to see is us go into this combo situation and not understand the mechanics of what our body might do in response and be disappointed then that the breastfeeding portion has sort of dropped away. So really evaluate your goals. Combo feeding is amazing. It relieves a lot of pressure for a lot of my clients, whether that be pumping milk and feeding breast milk in a bottle or supplementing with formula. But get really smart about how breastfeeding works in your body, so that you will continue to have breast milk if that's what you want. And do it that way, right? Like get really educated about how that works. But of course, that's a super like valid way to feed your baby. And for so many moms, taking that pressure off is really important, because our mental health, like when you just said like sitting all day to do it, like those things definitely factor in. I have never done a breastfeeding consult where I just talked about breasts and babies. I'm like, how are you? Because it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. That's so helpful to know. So if moms are considering, so they're getting ready to go back to work and say, you know, they're breastfeeding, what is the best way for moms to prepare to have someone else feed your child while you're at work? So like, what are the things that they can do to prep in advance or just prep their child for possibly a nanny or another, you know, caretaker to be feeding their child?
Well, if we're doing breast milk, that kind of like security net of having milk is giant, and that's a big stressor. So I want to stress again, or emphasize again, that the freezer fulls of milk that we see are great. Like if that is a milk that is being donated, I love it. We don't need that. Not every mom needs, like I would say very few need a giant stash of milk. So spending lots of time and energy when your body is recovering from birth, when you are learning this whole new human, we don't need to be constantly spending all of our energy like feeding this freezer. So I like milk catchers that catch milk while you're simultaneously feeding your baby to create like a little extra, a little cushion in the fridge. And then my tip would be to have someone else try to feed a bottle for the first time, because babies are real smart and they really love their moms, and they really love the way their moms smell and are like, this thing is not you. Like they're real smart, and it's a comfort thing for them. So having someone else offer your milk is probably the best way to get your baby to accept a bottle and to accept milk that is no longer coming directly from your body. So I think someone else that's loving and patient trying, and then just be patient and know that like by the time you go back, it's likely, you know, your baby will eat. Like it's never true. It's very rarely dire. Like these things will come, but what happens is we work ourselves up way before we have to, because that's what we do. We want to plan and we want to make sure they're okay. But we can kind of step into it lightly.
Yeah. Speaking of that, do you think that stress can affect milk supply?
I do. It's hormone related. So I always stop short of saying just relax, because we know how, you know, encouraging and helpful that is when people tell us. But I will say, you know, this is a hormone release. Our breasts release milk for our baby. And it's not just this, our baby sucks it out of our body. So the stress and the tension and all these things, when I work with my clients so much with breastfeeding, I'm always touching their shoulders. I'm like, okay, now you can relax. You can let your shoulders down, because we're doing this positioning dance and our baby is fussy and someone's watching us and our breast is out, right? And I'm like, it's cool, we got this. And everybody takes this big sigh. So yes, I think it can impact it. So knowing that breast milk is supply and demand, and kind of making sure that we're getting the right amounts for our baby, and that we see that our baby is thriving, is important. But you know, when we go down that road, I'm always real careful, because then it feels like we'll just relax. So I know it's stressful. It is stressful. So find the information that you need on how much your baby needs. Watch your body for cues, and then, you know, make sure that you're gathering wise help as far as like solving any of those problems. But the answer is never as simply as like, yeah, just relax. So yes, stress does impact it, but it's stressful to have a new baby. So we need to have a good support system in place.
Yeah. Okay, so let's switch over to going back to work, and what does it look like so pumping? So can you recommend when to start pumping if you're thinking about going back to work, and what breast pumps you would recommend, or like what's the setup? What's the ideal situation?
Okay, well, I think, when I talk about breastfeeding, I'm really about education about it. I want you to understand to the full capacity that you want to, how it works, how it feels in your body, what it means to maintain a supply, and that relationship with your baby. So I don't want that to be swayed or sort of made more compounded and like more work by introducing a pump too soon. So because I work in the home, oftentimes I see moms that have come home from the hospital pumping and breastfeeding, and I'm not really sure why, because they weren't separated from their baby. So the best way to tell your body to make milk is to have your baby close to you. If you happen to be separated from your baby, thank goodness for pumps, because in the early days, that's what helps us, and they're amazing for that. But if you're not, then your baby is better to tell your body that they're here and alive and well on the outside, and let's make them milk. So when it comes to introducing a pump, I would say put that off while you're recovering. I always tell my clients 2 weeks. I'm like, give your body 2 weeks to really adjust to this new baby, recover, establish your milk supply, and then we'll talk about what you want to do. Do you want to catch a little milk? Do you want to start actively pumping? Because then we kind of know, when you hit on it before about supply issues, we're going to know then if you have supply issues, if we're not getting a full supply of milk, if you have an oversupply because your baby is super vigorous at the breast. We're going to know those things. It's really hard to see them clearly before that. So I would say whatever pump your insurance will spring for is real good, because that, we have that now and it's really nice. A lot of my clients like the wearable pumps. I don't really recommend those really early on, because I think there's a different kind of learning curve, and we just hit on the part about hormones.
Yeah.
And when I have clients that are wearing wearable pumps, they're like, well, I can get up and do this and I can do this. And then we get into the stress thing.
Yeah.
What are we actually doing, right? Because breast milk is a release. It's oxytocin, it's prolactin, it's all these great hormones that make us feel warm and fuzzy. And if we're up and sweeping the floor, is that happening? So wearable pumps have their place. I think they're later. I have pharmacist clients that wear them when they're back to work after 12 weeks, and I love it. I think that's great. Yeah. But we've had established milk supply. So the pump that you get from your insurance is to maintain supply. So establish your supply for 2 weeks just with your baby, and then use whatever pump you have. Watch what's happening with your breasts and how they feel. And then just make sure that you have correct flange sizes and all of those little tweak things. I don't have a favorite pump. I have lots of clients that use lots of different things and they find what works for them. So I would say, to recommend one that isn't covered by an insurance doesn't mean that the one that isn't good. So I would say whatever's available to you, in the effort to help your breastfeeding journey.
That's great. So if a mom's getting ready to go back to work and she's, trying to figure out how to talk to her employer about pumping, is there anything to recommend on what is a great way to talk to your employer about pumping? And also, are there any specific laws that mothers should know about when going back on what to request?
Well, we have federal laws that protect breastfeeding. So there is no, we're in a bathroom when someone, a shared community bathroom where someone might be busting in, or we're in a coat closet, or, those are not where we are. We're in a safe, clean, private area that our employers are required to provide for us. And then they're required to provide us adequate time to do that. So I had a client who worked sort of in like an industrial setting, and she was going to have to walk or even drive minutes to this room. So we had to have a real clear discussion about her plan with her HR, because it was not going to be I just need 30 minutes to do this, because of the travel time of where that was. So there needs to be some capability for negotiations there in situations like that. But I will say most companies want to say they are family and mother friendly. And so just working with them in a really open and gracious way. Hey, look, I'm a breastfeeding mom. Like, what are the rules? What is currently established, maybe what is currently established for me when I return to work. And then if you have input on that, because it doesn't sound great as you start to do it, don't be afraid, because the law backs you up. The only like kind of tricky one is small companies with under 50 employees. Those employers can say that it provides like an I think the word was like undue hardship on them. So there just needs to be negotiation, because in my mind and experience in life, if you have under 50 employees, you're usually like a pretty tight-knit group already. So I have like, you know, you hear those words and you're like, oh yeah, get ready to fight. But I'm like, okay, if there's only 50 people where you work, I'm guessing you know most of them, and there's some community there and camaraderie, and we can figure out like what these moms need and deserve.
Okay. What if your employer doesn't want you to pump? Like, are employers allowed to say, sorry, I can't allow that?
Nope.
Okay.
I mean, you have legal recourse then. So the federal laws protect you, and then each state has its laws too. So that's really great to get educated on. And I always say this to my clients, you know, I'm not over here like, let's fight. Just be smart and walk in and give them the chance to do right by you. And when they don't, gather the information and say, no, this is not it. This is what I need for my baby. And then, you know, within the reality of doing your work, but also being able to do this, right? Because this is what we're doing. We're doing two things at once, and we deserve the space to do it, and the law guarantees us that right.
Okay. So my next question is so now that we've kind of covered like what to do to get back to work, once you're at work and you're pumping, what's the best way to store pumped milk at work? And like, I know you know, obviously need to keep it in the fridge and things like that. Should you keep it with, you know, in like a community fridge, like
other people's fridge?
Think about that.
Somebody's spaghetti, like somebody's spaghetti in your breast milk. Yeah, I mean, I think discretion is important. Like, you know, a lot of my clients work in male dominant fields, and I love that for them. But like the idea that you can't do that, there's no safety risk there for your breast milk near other people's food. Obviously, if someone were to ingest your breast milk, that's a different issue. So marking it, keeping it in a bag that's separate. Lots of people will, if they're allowed through their employer, can have like a separate little fridge, and they could keep things in there. Some won't allow it, but having just marked bags, like a closed lunch bag or something like that, or your own cooler. So I carry a cooler like as my lunch when I have like big client days. So I always suggest to my clients too, when you're pumping at work, you know, when we talk about these time restraints with the law and how long we're allowed to be gone from our job to do this, and we have these federal provisions that let us pump our milk, but we don't want to take advantage of them. Cleaning pump parts add something to it, right? We have the actual act of pumping, and then we have cleaning our parts, which is important for sanitation and for keeping us and our baby healthy. So refrigerating them in between pumping sessions is a great way to make sure that you're using your time to pump your milk and not doing all the cleaning. So a Ziploc bag, put in the fridge, maybe in something like, you know, like those hard-sided or like soft-ish sided Yetis. Or a nice cooler, not to brand drop, but like put it in there, put it in your Ziploc bag, put it back in the fridge. It's closed up. All your things are there. They're kind of contained, but then you save it and wash it when you get home, or you just leave it in there for the next day and use it for the next day. So whatever makes it simple for you. But those are kind of like the day-to-day tips of, just put it in the fridge, have a bag that you can't see through, and no one should be bothering you. Unless you have like, you know, lunch stealers, like some people do at their works. I don't know. People rifling through stuff. I think they'll learn pretty quick. I don't know.
So let's talk about pumping schedule. Do you need to keep the same pumping schedule all the time? And like, how does that work? Do you just need to make a schedule and stay on it? What if you deviate? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, breast milk is supply and demand, like I think I've said a bunch. But we want to keep a rhythm for our body to know that, yes, I still need, you know, you to make this much milk. So what happens when we hit Friday? I love it when my clients are like, oh, the pump, right? When they can drop the pump on Friday and go back to the breast on the weekend. So many moms just are like, yes. I want to do that. And that's dictated by your baby again. So, you know, typically if you go to work, you're mimicking a schedule that you sort of had with your baby. And then it should be relatively easy to jump back into that on the weekend. The other thing about that that's so great is that you can take your pumped milk from Friday and leave it for Monday. And if you want to go straight back to the breast for the weekend because it saves you all the hassle of cleaning and doing all the things. And there's this reconnection time with our baby that can be really important for a lot of us. Then that's there for you. Like there is no need to be like, well, I do this every day. Like it's cool. Like your body will adjust to that. If you do like pumping and say on the weekends you want to get out or you want to do something and you want someone to provide express milk, then keep a similar schedule and then just pay attention to how your breasts feel and how your body's responding to your pump and then make any little adjustments.
Okay. That's really great and so helpful. Do you think there are any, I know we talked about coolers and like having a bag, are there any other supplies to think about to bring with you when you're pumping at work? Anything that we missed?
A hands-free pump bra, right? So our nursing bras can double as a pump bra.
Yeah.
We can attach those kind of around the top of the flange and turn a nursing bra into a pumping bra. But a hands-free pumping bra is great. It saves us a lot. Then we can like be working on our computer or do whatever else we kind of want to do in that moment. So that's good. I would say those Ziploc bags for not cleaning, right then. There's so many great like milk storage bags that are kind of fun. Like when we talk about gear, like there's like really cute stuff that works really well. So it's like, do you want a backpack? Do you want this? Do you want that? So, but for the actual act of pumping, I would say extra pump parts. Okay. So like, I would love to see moms just keep kind of a bin, like if they're in their office or wherever their workspace is, keep extra parts in case something breaks or something is dirty or something, seems off with your pump that you have them. Yes. Those little, or the flange, or the valves, right? Like those little white valves can be tricky. I'm like, or I had a client whose dog chewed up a valve once, and I was like, okay, well, I guess we're getting a new one. All of those.
Dropped a valve down a vent.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it starts going in slow motion, I'm sure. But having extra parts is great no matter where you're pumping. So I always say that at home because I am all for like keeping it tight when it comes to like what we have to do because caring for your baby and your body is already a really big job. Yeah. So I would love to see all the like that's just money well spent. Extra pump parts, a hands-free pumping bra, anything, when you're early, when you start return to work, it can be really emotional, bring a picture of your baby, make it something that you can like think about the time with your baby, and in an effort to just kind of like, this is something I'm doing for my baby, right? We flip the script. I have to be at work. No, I get to pump milk for my baby while I'm at work. And then I'm going to be able to provide this milk for my baby when I get back.
Yeah. I love that. That's really, do you think, can you kind of talk a little bit about what it feels like as far as like, will having to pump have an effect on the bond with your baby, or what do you think?
Good question. Yeah, that's a great question. So pumping or having to pump or returning to work and not having that time at the breast with your baby when you're at your workplace is really hard emotionally when you've given all this time and energy. A lot of us have just given birth. Like parental leave is not long enough in our country. And that is not the topic for today, but it definitely plays in. So there are real emotions. Yeah. But I have never, worked with a mom that wasn't the best mom for her baby. So the bond that we have with our baby is so much deeper than how we feed them, because that's just one part. And breastfeeding, bottle feeding, any kind of combo feeding, a formula mom is fiercely protective and amazing of her baby. Like these things are non-negotiable, right? So, you are your baby's mother and nothing ever changes that. So I think that it can feel a way, but the truth is a mother and a baby, and it makes me like teary, but a mother and a baby, like there's just nothing like that. So no, your feelings about it might start, making you doubt it, and that's valid. But I'm here to tell you that like, I have never had a client, that I didn't look at and say like, the two of you are perfect together. Yeah. So,
I love
it's
that.
just managing the circumstances.
Yeah, I know it is. So hard.
Truly.
I think back now, I'm like thinking about like having to leave and pump, it's so hard.
Yeah.
It's so unbelievably emotional. I think for every mom, it's
Yeah.
so hard, but you're right. Like how you feed your baby doesn't depend on the bond or how much you love your child,
Right.
if they love you, or if you're a good mom or not. So that's really nice.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. It's just the negative ways that we continue to like defer, you know, as women, and then the pressures with motherhood, you know, those negative voices can be really loud.
Yeah.
So, you know, that kind of thinking is just one of the other ways we're trying to find out if we're doing okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, am I okay if I, and I'm here to tell you, yes, 100%. Yes, you are.
Yeah, I love that. Wow. Well, those are all the questions that I have for you. Is there anything else that you want to touch on before we finish up?
Well, yes, there is. There is a big one that I'm really on it about, and it's maternal mental health. So because I do breastfeeding, and we do talk about return to work, and we talk about all these situations that women deal with, you know, as we're transitioning into motherhood and then back into the version of ourselves that has a career and a job outside caring for our baby, I really want us to be talking to each other about what that looks like and what that feels like in a really real way. So I love and would love to see more moms search the Edinburgh scale. It's a scale for perinatal mood disorders. So when we talk about postpartum depression, I think a lot of moms go, well, I'm not depressed, but I'm a little ragey and I'm a little anxious and I have a little OCD. Or I'm these things. So we really need to kind of blow the lid off like what we think these, you know, perinatal mood disorders look like, and have real conversations with each other. Because as I sit with my clients and do the work, they will point to a friend like, look how great she's doing, or look at my sister, she's so amazing. And later we find out like they were struggling too. And if that could just kind of fall away, and we would know that like, look, this looks different for everyone. No one is doing it perfect. We're all just kind of trying to figure it out. Then we'll have more common ground. So the Edinburgh gives you like a quantitative number. So you can say to your girlfriend, I would say, hey, you know, like I was an 11 yesterday, but I'm like a 9 today. And then we have this language, because your situation is going to look totally different than my situation, and like we're better off for it, right? When we don't live in a vacuum of like, you do this and this is your choice and I'll hang out with you. But when we talk about how we're feeling, having some common language or some common ground to make sure that we're checking in on each other and that we're doing better is really important. So it's called the Edinburgh scale. I want to see girlfriends like passing it around. I give it to my clients. Good OBs and good pediatricians will have it at your 6-week appointment. I don't want that to be the first time you ever see it.
I love that. I didn't know about this. I had really terrible postpartum depression with my son.
Yeah.
And I had, I was a disaster, and I had no idea about this. And I can remember even going to my OB and answering some questions, and like, I knew I was not okay. And I just felt like there's not a lot of information out there. I felt like I was crazy, because all my friends who were having kids seemed so like happy and perfect. And they were just like, you know, everything was great. And I was over here struggling, like having a lot of problems and absolutely like terrible. And so that's really great information. I still had not heard of that before. So that's really
It's probably the scale you filled out, but how different would it be if you had a girlfriend say, hey, you know what? Like when I was 4 weeks postpartum, I was a 14. And so like, what are you? And like, then you look at her and how she's doing now, and she's going to tell you the reality of how it got better instead of just like, I'm a 14 today and forever, I guess. Right? Because that's what it can feel like. But if you see your girlfriend, and then the other thing is, if we start having this language, she might tell you, oh, I look fine now, but between then there was this and there was this and there was this, because that's the reality. I see you guys, like I sit with you and I know it, and it's beautiful and it's the truth, and that is what matters. So sharing it in a way like you're saying, I think is just really, really important. And there might be other ways that, you know, come up as we explore perinatal mental health more, which I'm for 100%. But for now, it's sort of like my mission to make that more common for just us everyday women, you know, sitting with our girlfriends and our babies, to be able to have that language. So I use it with all my clients, And then I encourage them to talk about it with each other.
I love that. Well, I have to say that inspired me to get a postpartum doula when I had my daughter, because I knew that I wanted to have more support and someone that I could talk to or like help me through and understand. And I had such a better experience.
Yeah.
And so I think like that's my number one advice to moms is get yourself as much support as possible. And if you can get a postpartum doula, do it.
Yeah. Ask for it on your registry.
Yes.
Say, hey, I don't need more onesies.
Yes.
I don't need,
Ask
all these baby clothes.
Ask somebody to gift it. I mean, honestly, it's worth every penny.
Every penny.
It's so great. So, well, this has been such a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for
I enjoyed it so much.
This information is just so great for any new moms out there who are thinking about going back to work and trying to navigate pumping and what that looks like. So, April, can you tell us like where we can follow you, how we can find out about your services, and just kind of a shout out to yourself?
Oh, that's fun. I am on Instagram at In This Together. I do stories from my car, which is really fun. And then I post about like what's going on with my clients in an effort to be like a conduit to say like, hey, moms are out here struggling. Don't worry, it's not just you. And then my website is www.inthistogetherdoula.com. And so that's all where my services are. You can see how I do the motherhood project. So I hope other people replicate that. Like if you're a postpartum doula on here and you're in some other town, I hope you're hooking up with the pelvic floor therapist and mental health professionals in your area and creating this like network for your clients. But that's where I am, and in Columbus, Ohio with my, crazy kids running around. So
that's awesome. Okay.
Thank
great.
you.
Well, for all of you moms out there, you can also check out goodbuygear.com where you can buy and sell tons of baby gear. We also sell all the things you need for breastfeeding and for pumping. We sell breast pumps of all different kinds. So check us out on goodbuygear.com, and we will definitely be having more of these conversations. So thank you so much, and I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.